Okay.
Yeah, I've got mine behind me.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's Facebook Live on Travel Business Mastermind. So we're trying to do these every other Monday. We may add more if more people demand. As always, we are always open to your ideas and suggestions, so feel free to put those in the comments. But today we're actually going to talk about money. And if any of you are on our email list, you probably got an email from me this morning that asked the question, is your business a cash eating monster? And that is a concept that I got from this great book, Profit First. I highly recommend you all pick up a copy. It really changed my life and it changed my business when I read this book, because what happens a lot in any business, I mean, you've all heard the statistic that over 50% of businesses fail within 5 years. And so if you've made it past 5 years, congratulations. But the rest of the story is that a lot of those businesses that do survive are surviving, and that's really what they're doing. They're surviving, but they're not really profitable. They're not really generating a reasonable income, a reasonable return for the business owner. And one of the concepts that Mike talks about in this book is the purpose of your travel business is really not just to book trips for people. It's to provide a salary and profit to you, the business owner. And so if you have a business that you're having to put money into, that you're getting in debt to support, that's not really delivering on that, something is wrong. And so this book teaches you how to fix it. So, and Richard, you can jump in at any time if you have questions or whatever, so I don't just go talk and talk and talk. So what happens with the profit first mentality is that, those of us who took accounting learned that the difference between revenue and expenses is profit. So you take your top line revenue, you subtract your expenses, and whatever's left over is your profit. And out of that profit, you pay yourself, and maybe you put some money away, maybe you put money in a retirement plan. And what Mike recommends in this book is that we actually flip that. So instead of looking at revenue minus expenses equals profit, we actually take our profit off the top. And it's really the concept that you hear a lot from a lot of different financial gurus, like the Susie Ormans of the world. They always say, pay yourself first, put money in your 401k plan before you pay any of your expenses. So what Profit First teaches is to really do that as for your business. So you figure out, so the way this works is there's an assessment in the book where you actually calculate your numbers for last year and you figure out what you made, what you spent, what you took home, what you paid yourself, what your taxes were, and you come up with like a baseline of where you're at. If you're like me, you're going to find that your expenses were completely out of control. Maybe they're not for you. Maybe you're much better than I am, have more self-control about signing up for FAMs and conferences and things. But what happens to us, and this is not just for travel, this is any business, is that when we get a lot of revenue in, we think that our business is doing great. And so we go and say, you know what, I'm going to sign up for that FAM. I'm going to sign up for that conference. I'm going to invest in my business. I'm going to hire an assistant. And you start spending this money because it's sitting in your bank account and you have it. But what you don't think about is what's going to happen 3-4 months from now down the road when maybe that revenue spike was a one-time thing. Travel makes this extra complicated because of the way we get paid, right? So we might charge a fee up front, which is a small portion of the revenue on a booking, but then the commission doesn't come till after the people travel or after they make final payment. So we're having to project out 6 months to 9 months to even see revenue. That makes your revenue sometimes go up and down, especially if you're newer in the business and you haven't built a solid pipeline of bookings. This is one of the things that we work with our clients on in the Business Accelerator program is how to do those projections and how to kind of try to even out those numbers. But today I just want to focus on the concept of managing your money in a better way. So once you figure out your numbers from last year and you say your expenses were 50% of your revenue, you paid yourself 30% of your revenue, your taxes were 10%, those percentages become like your starting guideline. So what Mike will tell you to do is to go open 4 bank accounts. One's for your income, one's for your operating expenses, one is for your owner's compensation because you're actually going to start paying yourself, one is for profit, and one is for taxes. And you're going to use the percentages from last year, and every time you get a deposit, you're going to allocate your money to these accounts. So then when it's time to pay bills, you have to pay them from the operating expense account, not from the entire revenue of your business. What this does, it's sort of like when you go on a diet and they tell you to eat with smaller plates so that you automatically eat less. This does the same thing with your money. Because your operating account doesn't have all your money in it, you don't get fooled into thinking that you have more money to spend on your business than you actually have. And it's not magic. It's similar to, if any of you have ever read any of Dave Ramsey's books, he teaches the envelope system where you put money in envelopes for different categories of your budget. This is just the same thing, except you're setting up these different bank accounts for your business so that you can start allocating your revenue. What this has done for me is it's created an amazing amount of sanity, because instead of worrying about like waiting for the next check to come in to pay a bill or to do this or to do that, these accounts, like after a couple of months, are funded. So I know whenever it's time to pay whatever, there's money in the operating account to pay it. Whenever it's time to pay myself my salary every month, I can actually pay myself a consistent amount every month. And what that does for you is it reduces a lot of stress, and it actually makes it a lot easier to project your finances. You can just look at your bank accounts and know kind of where you stand. And it also keeps you from taking on expenses that you probably really can't afford. And it's easy for us to fool ourselves, into thinking that, oh, I have to go on these FAMs, I have to go on to all these conferences. And while they're valuable and they're really good for your business, you don't need to go on all of them. And you need to make sure that they fit within your guidelines, because really, ultimately, you don't want to get to the end of the year and find that you went on 5 FAMs, but you have no money left to pay for anything. And then you end up, some people end up in debt. Some people just end up with, my business isn't making money. For me, it was my business wasn't making money. And I remember, my husband asking me like, okay, you work so hard with all these trips, like what, but you never seem to have any money. What's happening? And so, and this is why, because I didn't really have a system. So we spend a whole module in our course, Travel Business Accelerator, on structuring your finances. And while it's not required, I mean, some people take it or leave it. I think it's a super great way to get started on the right foot with your finances in your business.
And one of the things that is really important about what Myrna teaches, and I actually used this when I was married, my ex-wife and I, we used the envelope method at the suggestion of an outsider who said this might help things. And it did, because it takes that money and it puts it against that budget. And one of the things that we try to do at Travel Business Mastermind is we know that you will feel better about your business. You will feel you have more control over your business if you not only can see the numbers in a cash flow statement, but you can see what you spent against those numbers. So if you're going to say, look, for travel and entertainment, for T&E, which is FAM trips and local conferences and my YASTA chapter or whatever, this is how much I can spend per month, because I know based on how that looks in my cash flow statement, I will always have a positive balance at the end of every month. Mm-hmm. Then you start to budget better, and that gives you that sense of control. And when you have that sense of control and you realize that the marketing budget that you needed, that you don't have to rob from because you took too many FAM trips, that marketing budget can be consistent. Mm-hmm. And that marketing budget is where a lot of your new sales leads come from. And so it's a part of this virtuous circle, this virtuous cycle of, if you know where your money's coming from and you know how you're spending it, then you're always going to feel confident about sustaining and growing your business, because you know what those numbers look like month to month. And that's why Profit First, we consider it a cornerstone. As Myrna said, if you've already got another system that you use, if you already feel comfortable with how you're managing your revenue and your profits, okay. But this is a really great foundation to ground your business.
Yeah, because, if you're newer in the business and you've never done anything like this before, I'll say for myself, I have an MBA. I know how to do financial statements, and I did. I used QuickBooks for my travel agency, so I always knew, what was in my accounts. But still, I managed to somehow overspend on things like, especially because in my mind, I thought, well, this is a business expense because it's going to help me sell more travel, because I'm going to learn about, Africa, or I'm going to learn about this cruise line by going on this FAM. So it's very easy to justify those and think that they're necessary. But, you really need to check, how is that going to affect your profitability? How is that going to affect your ability to reward yourself for the work you do? And that's one of the big principles in the book, is that, the business should serve you, not the other way around. And a lot of times we become like slaves to our businesses. Yeah. We work ridiculous hours. We barely make any money because we're constantly reinvesting the money into the business. And that is, that has to stop. Yes, it is. You are required to invest a certain amount of your revenue into your business. You need to have a marketing budget. You need to have a budget for technology and fam trips and all the things you need to be a good travel advisor. But it needs to be not at the expense of paying yourself a salary at the end of the day or paying yourself a profit at the end of the day. And that was the really big lesson that I learned from this book. And that's really this is why I recommend it so much. It's just, it really just adds a layer of sanity. If you're an entrepreneurial type and you're just always hustling, and it's hard to forget about this stuff, but it's super important to have that foundation.
The profit first philosophy is also extremely good for businesses with seasonal volatility in their cash flow. If you know that most of your cash arrives, in the summertime, well, by using profit first, if that's when your cash comes and you consistently know what that looks like in terms of going into the income envelope, you know how much of that needs to just be put aside into that bank account. That's my income bank account. Now, when those checks are coming in because you booked those trips back in January, February, let's say you're an ocean cruise, family ocean cruise specialist, and, families get off in the summertime. That's predominantly where your cash comes from. Okay, well, now you're going to need to start doing your marketing in advance of wave season in the coming year. And if you have a marketing budget, so now when all those commission checks start arriving in the summertime or early fall, because that's when the cruise line finally paid you, now you're apportioning every month and the money's there. And if you use profit first, it kind of takes all of those peaks and valleys and it levels them out for you so that you don't have to go, okay, how much of that money did I have in September because my bank looks smaller in December? You don't have that anymore. And you have that confidence and you have that assurity about how you're running your business. Really is critical that you think of concepts like this. And that's why we incorporate it in our program.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, a travel business is a business, and, you do want to make sure that you're making a profit. If you're not making a profit after so many years, maybe it's not right for you. Maybe there's something else you should be doing. But honestly, our goal is always to help our clients get to that level where their business is sustainable and profitable. And we don't just stop at marketing and sales, because while a lot of businesses, that's what they need is more sales, a lot of times it's not more sales, it's more profitability. And so you may have plenty of sales to generate the income you want to generate. It's just that maybe your expenses are too high versus what other people are able to do. One of the things that, we like to look at is benchmarks. And in the book, they give you some benchmarks because when you look at the percentages after you assess your books for last year, you're going to compare that with average businesses throughout the US, and you're going to have those target percentages. For example, according to the book, for a small business of less than $250,000 in revenue, which most of us are in the travel world, I'm talking commission revenue.
Right.
You shouldn't have expenses of more than 30% of that. So, when you take your $100,000 in commissions that you got last year and you multiply that by 30%, that's your budget for all of your expenses. And that's where you get your marketing money, your fam money, your technology money, your going to conferences money. And then, they recommend that you pay yourself half. So half of all your commissions needs to go into account for salary. So imagine, how much better organized your life would be if you could just pay yourself on the 10th and the 5th, on the 1st and the 15th, like most normal people that have a job. And what that would do for your personal finances to have that regular income coming in on a schedule, not just like, oh, it's a good month, so I'm going to take a draw of $3,000, and then, oh, this is a bad month, so I'm only going to take 500. This is how I was running my travel business for a long time. I mean, it was really disorganized. And anyway, so that's why I preach a lot about this. I think it's a great system, and it can really add value. But it also shows you, like, when Richard and I work with our clients, we're not just looking at the surface. We really get deep into what the real issues are, what the challenges are, what are the things that are going to create that good foundation for your business. And that includes your money. And that includes your sales and your operation systems and your marketing, everything. So it is a holistic program. And that is one of the things I think that makes it unique.
When we talk about this part of our business, sometimes we see people's eyes glaze over, because I find for entrepreneurs, the biggest challenge they have is that their business is a legitimate business, that they deserve to extract good income from it. And they sort of, they deal with this becoming your own CFO issue with, it's almost like intimidating or daunting. And what we try to tell people is, once you start laying the numbers out objectively on a piece of paper, and you start to see what those numbers look like in terms of, what's my marketing budget? Do I have any extra to hire an executive assistant to do all that stuff I don't want to do? When does the money flow in? Once you start to get a feel for it, all the fear goes away. And we see more people walking out of our program going, I feel, I didn't have to get an MBA to be the CFO. I didn't realize that. Profit first is a really big first step in becoming the CFO of your business, because it takes you at a very high level and says, put the money in an envelope. It's a bank account. Mm-hmm. Put the money in an envelope and don't touch it unless it's for that purpose.
Right. That is the key. And that is what makes it work. We've had some students that said, you know what, I'm just going to do this on a spreadsheet. It's fine. I mean, if you're really disciplined, that can work. But for most people, it's better to just follow the system because it does have like that built-in sort of correction, because then when there's no money in the account, you can easily see there's no money in the account. And it just helps you stay honest with yourself about what you're doing and what you're spending.
I've worked with a lot of people at the Small Business Administration. And I've looked at a lot of studies on small businesses and entrepreneurs, and the majority of business owners do what we call in the coaching business, bank account accounting. Mm-hmm. They see at the end of the month that there's still money there, so they think their business is profitable. But I've run spreadsheets for business owners and showed them how many months there's a negative number. Mm-hmm. And said to them, okay, where are you going to get the cash? You're going to self-fund it when you hit minus $12,000 for the month? How are you going to manage this situation? And, that's an uncertainty that can be very inhibiting to the sustainability of a business, because if you don't know whether or not your bank account's going to be black at the end of the month instead of in the red, that can really inhibit how you try to grow the business. Some of the calculated gambles that you take. You really need to know that level of consistency is there to really go out and make this business the incredible opportunity that you thought it was when you started it.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a fun business. We get to travel. We get to help people with their travel. I mean, it's a great business to be in. It's not boring. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we are actually getting paid a fair amount for our efforts, because we do work hard and we do work all hours. And, when you're in this busy season and then you have things like coronavirus going on and, you have all this extra work to do, at the end of the day, it's nice to know that that's okay. I'm getting paid. I'm making money. This is good. I don't mind doing this work for my clients because I'm being well compensated for it.
Right.
And that's part of being a good business owner is paying yourself. And you know, at the very, very beginning, you might not be able to do that. There may be a 3 to 6 month period where you're really just trying to build the business. But after like a year or two, you need to start doing this. Like you need to start paying yourself. You need to fund yourself. You need to make sure your business can sustain itself and you, not just itself, because otherwise, you know, you're running a nonprofit. And that's probably not what you got into business to do. Part of what the book goes on, like once you set up these basic systems, is then you actually take a look at your expenses and you look at, okay, so my percentage of expenses is, you know, 50%. I really need it to be 30%. Where can I cut? And of course, there's lots of principles that you can follow for that. But one of the things that they recommend you really ask yourself for each line item on your business expenses, like, do you really need this to deliver a great product to your clients? Like, you know, and really just cut the fat. And then that's how kind of you start. And maybe you cut like one thing at a time, you know, little baby steps, but those little baby steps add up. So I know for me, part of it was, you know, all these crazy little software subscriptions we sign up for, you know, like, and sometimes they're really good software that you really need. And sometimes it's just something that you kind of tried it out and you used it for a while, but then you kind of stopped using it and you forgot to cancel it. And meanwhile, you're getting charged $10 a month and it's a small amount. So you don't focus on it. But, you know, at the end of the year, that's $120. So it's finding those, you know, just finding those makes huge progress. And then you start to look at the bigger things, like, you know, you get really picky about which FAMs you go on, because you and I know that the FAMs are not actually free, right? Sometimes the trip is free, but then you have to buy air. You might need a pre hotel. You might need, I don't know. You know, it's like, it's never free. There's always expenses, and you just have to make sure that those fit into your plan for your business for the year. I've started setting a budget for that at the beginning of the year. Okay, I'm going to spend this much money on travel related FAMs and this much money on conferences, and this is it. And anything else that gets thrown my way, I'm just going to pass because it's not in the budget. It's not part of the plan. That's really the only way you have to be that disciplined. Otherwise, you're just going to be working for free.
Yep. And, you know, that's the other part of it, is that Profit First is a part of us trying to get you to look at those expense items and you know, literally draw them out across the whole year. So this way, if you did know that you spent $120 a year on a piece of software, you can ask yourself, well, this is where my income's coming from. Do I ever use it to create the bulk of the income?
Exactly.
Because if
is this necessary, right? Is this necessary to create money? If it is, keep it. If it's not, then think about getting rid of it. Like, and the same thing with FAM trips. Like, you know, maybe you want to go somewhere, someone offers you, but is that really part of what you sell? You know, if you sell mostly, you know, Europe, while it might be tempting to go on a FAM to Africa, it's not fair to you or to that supplier for you to go on a FAM to Africa when you probably are never going to sell Africa, right? Unless that's a goal of yours to start selling Africa, then you shouldn't be going on that FAM. So a lot of times when we're new in travel, we kind of want to go everywhere, and I've been there, done that. So I'm not judging. I'm just saying I've made the same mistake. But when you really like, I'm just more careful now about what I commit to. You know, I know what I like to sell. I know what my clients like. I know the type of clients I want to attract. And if a FAM trip fits, I'll go for it. If it doesn't fit, I'll just pass, because it's not helping us or our suppliers. In fact, suppliers appreciate that you are discriminating in going on FAMs, that you have a chance of booking one day. They are not doing those just to give agents free trips. Obviously, you know, they're trying to grow their business as well. So, you know, that's really just where you can start to make really better decisions about what you invest in for your business. And that's going to help you be more profitable.
Yep. Okay. We're at 24 minutes. This Facebook Live will be recorded, so we'll have it up on our page, and we'll promote it a couple of times this week to catch your eye. Just to let everybody know that we've booked our first guest speaker for our next Facebook Live. So 2 weeks from today, Where Myrna and I will be interviewing Lisa Sheldon, the president of the DWHSA, the Destination Wedding and Honeymoon Specialist Association. And it's a different business model than a generalist because of the ebb and flow of destination weddings and honeymoons. There is a rhythm to that during a calendar year. And this whole concept of profit first fits perfectly with bringing Lisa on in 2 weeks, because if you are heavy loaded in certain times of the year with your marketing expense, because that's when the bridal expos are, that's when people just get engaged, or the bulk of people get engaged, therefore you want to bring them into your sales funnel, so that's when you got to do most of your marketing. Having profit first in place will allow you to make sure you've got marketing dollars in an envelope. You'll know when your cash is flowing, when the commission checks arrive, and how to spread that out over the year. So we thought it was a really great way to now articulate what Myrna has talked about today and what we teach in our program with a real practical person out there who deals with destination wedding specialists and honeymoon specialists on a regular basis. So you'll start to see this come to life in that interview, hoping you can join us in 2 weeks.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll sign off here in a few. If you ever have any suggestions for topics or questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're always on Facebook Messenger or email, or you can comment on our posts. We monitor all of those channels and are happy to have a conversation with you.
Yep. Great. Okay. It's a great start to a new week. Make it your best, and we'll be talking to you in about 2 weeks.
All right.
Adios.
Bye.